volleyball fans, welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Arnie Ball. Fill in for Mark Franke, who's somewhere off in California doing something, whatever it is he does. Today on the show we have SID Mike Jewell and sophomore middle hitter Josh Sanders. So stay with us, we'll be right back.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Coach Ball. And today we would like to thank our two major corporate sponsors for helping us put on the show, Fujifilm USA and Touchtone Energy. Hey, how about that, John? I got it right, huh? Right off the bat. We don't need Franke. Let him stay in California. He's out of here. We got with us our guest on the first segment today, and he's going to be on the third segment. So fans, I apologize for that, but you'll have to look at him more than once. Our Sports Information Director, Mike Jewell. That's correct, isn't it, Mike? Is that correct? Mike Jewell. It's like the Jewel of the Nile.
Ruby Jewell.
Were you part of the film of Jewel of the Nile or Ruby Jewell or anything like that?
I was the one stuck in the cave.
See, I don't watch those kind of shows, so I don't even know what he's talking about. What we want to ask Mike here for a little bit during the show today is about last week's tournament over at the Coliseum. And Mike, probably the highlight for me, even though most fans would think it would be beating Penn State or Pacific in 3 and beating Penn State in 3, really happened after the tournament was over. And I know you were there because you experienced the same kind of thing that I experienced. You know, the Fury played right after the tournament on Saturday. That's the reason we played in the afternoon. And I saw Randy Brown, the general manager of the Coliseum, wandering around in work clothes and a pair of glasses that looked like he ought to have been in the Nile picture.
Correct.
Actually working. I mean, he's actually physically. You remember that?
I do remember
What happened
that.
there? What happened that made it such an interesting picture?
Well, it was unique because sort of after the game, everybody started coming out and getting ready to work, and all of a sudden you just see Randy Brown sort of out of the corner of your eye picking up the tile pieces of the floor and placing them into the box, the crates that go back into the storage. And what was funny is you actually saw him working, and he was acting almost like nobody would even notice him. Dressing inconspicuous, wearing jeans, having glasses on, and just sort of roaming around. And then all of a sudden, well, the one thing that we noticed is you were going to go take a picture of him. But the bad part about it was you started talking to him, and Cheeks and Roger and me were both like, well, maybe Arnie needs to stop talking to him so he can get this picture. He kept talking and talking and talking. We were like, finally, he's not going to get that picture whatsoever. And then you took some time off. You sort of walked around backwards aimlessly, sort of like you do at the games. I mean,
like I did the other night when everybody wondered why I was sitting on the end of the bench.
Yeah, when you were sitting, well,
in the end of the stand.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about that. We'll talk about that after a bit.
But you snuck up behind him, got a photograph. Too bad we don't have the photo right now. Otherwise, we could put it on here. It would be great to use. Possibly get Randy in a little trouble, too, but who knows. But it was a lot of fun. It was the first time I've actually seen Randy work out on anything at all because, I mean, I spent 2 years with the Wizards, never saw him do anything on that field.
Yeah, so you have the same kind of background that I do with Randy. I've known Randy for 10 years or so when we served on the sports court board and done a lot of stuff in the Coliseum. I've never seen him ever work. And when I saw that happen, I thought, great opportunity. So we're going to use that picture at some time when it's appropriate to show that Randy Brown actually does know how to work a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Mike, let's talk just for a second. I'm going to change the subjects on you, still at the Coliseum. But let's talk about the logistics of us having to take that turn to the Coliseum for you and what it is you do for the university.
Well, it was actually pretty easy. The thing is, we went over the day before just to look at the setup of what we're going to do, what we need to actually prepare for this. And the Coliseum was very, very gracious and very helpful at working around stuff. Most of the time, a typical setup starts in the morning if you want to do it right. And by game time, you're way ahead of schedule, ready to go for the game. The only thing that we were worried about the entire time was who was going to mess up on the scoreboard, because it was a digital scoreboard that we've never seen before. And that sort of threw us for the loop. We were like looking at it, and me and two other maintenance men were sitting there trying to figure out how to work it. And none of us knew how, so we felt really stupid at first. But the basics is you go in, they have the table set up. We lug all our stuff over, which took quite a bit of time to do. The concern that we had was that in the Coliseum there's a lot of open room. Players can run wherever they want except off that floor. And if they would actually take out the scores table, which was basically just wood tables, I mean, they'd go right through it. And we were sort of concerned about that at first. So we were trying to put our laptop and our stat crew down at the far end. Hopefully nobody would run them over. We did have a couple cases where a couple times the players ran into the scores table, but nothing really major other than Tommy Frankie's wife spilling her pop all over the place. I mean, it was pretty good.
Well, Mike, when we talk about having this tournament in the Coliseum, and certainly when we made the schedule out, we anticipated playing back in the Expo Center where we normally play. But because of some conflict there, we ended up playing in the Coliseum. It's kind of a preview for the NCAA tournament, and of course you've not been here since we had an NCAA tournament, so it's a little bit of a preview for you and the logistics of that. And I also know that you spent quite a bit of time with Channel 56 in regards to their setup, and of course our NCAA tournament will be televised by ESPN. So how much of an advantage is it for you to be able to have done that at the Coliseum, getting ready for the NCAA tournament?
Definitely, it was a lot of help for the spring fling doing it. It gave me an idea of where everything's going to go, what we're going to need to do, the loading docks, different ways that we're going to have to take the players and coaches after the cooling period, after the match, up to the NCAA conference room for questionings. It was just one of those things that I was able to map out in my head where we needed to go and what actually needed to be done to prepare for anything that could pop up or arise that could go wrong, and have a couple different backup plans just in case something does go wrong. So it was very good for me to actually see what was there, what I needed to do, and something that we've been looking at is just different ways that we can improve each time we go over there. And I think for the Final Four, we're going to try a unique way that might improve so drastically I might confuse people.
So, so as we look at that move to the NCAA tournament, and what is your part going to be with the NCAA tournament in regards to the actual operation of the tournament? And we have about a minute or so to go here.
My operation will basically be taking care of all the media's needs, making sure its statistics are correct, balanced. I'll also be the mediator in the NCAA press conference after the games, so I'll be up there. We'll be in charge of keeping track of the Ethernet cord. We're going to wire the whole press row up, possibly. A lot of places haven't had in the past. It's just whether we can get the capability to do it or not.
Well, certainly all those things are critical to the success of the tournament, and of course in the past we've been very fortunate to have quality people like yourself, and we've also, I think this year, really have a leg up from the standpoint that you've been so actively involved in doing all the statistical stuff, not only for our team but doing some national team kind of stuff, the MIVA and the website that we have. Certainly is going to make for a great tournament when we host it here in May. We're going to let Mike go here in a couple seconds and bring in Josh Sanders, the sophomore middle hitter for our team. And in the third segment, we're going to bring Mike back. So Mike, don't run around. We'll have some other questions I want to ask you in regards to the NCAA and the national scene. So if you'll stay with us, we'll be right back with Josh Sanders.
As the American military gets smaller, who will be there to answer the call? They will. They're the National Guard and Reserve, and they make up half of today's military forces. As an employer, you may be asked to support their mission. Remember, their response depends on yours.
Welcome back to the Mark Franke. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the Arnie Ball Show, hosted by Mark Franke, who is in California, and this is Coach Ball setting in for Mark Franke, who thinks this is his TV show. Actually, I don't know what all that meant, but welcome back. My guest in the second segment today is a young man from Wisconsin. Is that where you're from?
That's where I'm from.
Oh, Wisconsin. Yeah, he's from Wisconsin. He's a sophomore. That's correct, right? Sophomore. See, I got to make sure you get these things right. A sophomore middle hitter from Wisconsin, and his name is Josh Sanders, and he stands about 6'7".
About that.
Somewhere in there. Depends on whether you measure him wide or tall.
Exactly.
6'7". And Josh, tell us what you're studying here at IPFW.
I think I'm studying business right now. It's kind of going back and forth, you know. I think I'm leaning towards like business management, but
What's the other option?
I don't know.
It's not female anatomy, is it?
Possibly, but
John, or Josh, come on now. This is a family show. Clean it up, Josh.
Exactly.
All right, clean it up.
It's either that or I'm thinking like political science, maybe. It's kind of
Do those go hand in hand?
not really.
No, not really?
No.
So
So it's a matter of like settling down and picking something.
So does your dad know you're going to be a professional student the rest of your life, juggling back and forth between business and political science?
Not yet. I'm sure he's gonna find out soon enough once the bills come. Then he might have an idea.
What do you think his response to that will be, Josh?
He's gonna be proud of me.
He'll be proud that you're a
Proud that I'm
professional
being
student
student.
bouncing back and forth.
Exactly.
Ah.
Why not? You know.
So tell us, Josh, a little bit about your background up in Wisconsin, your high school career, how you got started in volleyball, and some things like that.
Well, I started playing in 9th grade. We got high school volleyball as a varsity sport in Wisconsin. So I was on varsity from my sophomore year through my senior year, and I played on a pretty good club team called Great Lakes. And like my senior year, we ended up taking 3rd in the nation. We had the #1 team in the country for all year, but just kind of ended up spraining my ankle at nationals, so kind of put a little damper on the season. But I don't know. I've been well developing since then. Like I've been playing middle since my senior year. It's the first year I started playing middle, totally. Used to be a setter. I played all the positions. You know, I even used to pass a little bit, if you believe that. You know, but it's kind of, I don't know. It's about the main of my playing time since then.
Now, you mentioned earlier about playing with Great Lakes and the fact that there's a high school varsity program up in Wisconsin, up and around the Racine area and all the area up in there. Explain to us just a little bit about the Great Lakes program, and if people are familiar with volleyball, they're usually familiar on the women's side, about the junior programs, the travel teams, and so on and so forth. This Great Lakes team. How much time did you spend with it practicing, and where all did you travel and things like that?
On the Great Lakes team, my junior and senior years when we did the bulk of our traveling. Like junior year, we went to Denver. That's where the championships were, I believe, that year. Yeah, and we traveled to the East Coast. We didn't really go to the West Coast my junior year, but my sophomore year we went out there for nationals. Went to San Jose. But my senior year we went out to LA, to Toramar. We had a pretty big tournament out there, and went out to New York again, or Virginia area. Traveled, went down to Dallas for nationals, and but the bulk of the tournaments were just like right around the Chicago area. We went to Minnesota a couple times, and we ended up traveling quite a bit. It was pretty nice. Got a good experience. Got to play against the California teams quite a bit. Got to see like all the talent out there and see how we matched up against the Midwest teams. You know, and like at Nationals, we were the first Midwest team or any team east of Mississippi to be ranked #1 going to the Nationals, and it's kind of like none of the teams really knew what to expect about us. And when we came out there, it's kind of we didn't really do too hot because it was like the very first game of the first match that I went down, so it's kind of a little difficult. But we ended up making it all the way to pretty much the finals, the semifinals, and then it's kind of bowed out to Balboa Bay, who eventually won a tournament.
So you've got through volleyball, both at the junior program and certainly now in the 2 years you've been here at IPFW, you've got to do quite a bit of traveling and getting to see part of the country, and maybe one of these days even expand our horizons past that. I want to jump ship on you just a little bit and talk about the position that you play. You play the position of some people call it middle attacker, some people call it middle blocker. It's a combination of both or whatever. And I also want to ask you how you feel about the new rule with the libero. So, but first, so remind me to do that. First of all, let's go to the position that you play. What makes this position, at least in my opinion, the most difficult position in volleyball to play?
I think it's because it's constant movement. Like on the outsides, it's just kind of like you just can set up there, you can just set up the block. But on the middle, you gotta go back and forth. You gotta like be able to read where the setter's gonna go, and you gotta be able to make sure you don't jump with them, otherwise you'll jump all over our cases. It's kind of like it's just we're constantly moving. It's like always jumping, like non-stop. It's just kind of it's crazy. But then, like you said about the libero, it's definitely nice because middle hitters seem to tend to be not so hot at defensive players, and with the libero in there, you know, they tend to be the best defensive player on the team, or in our case, get our team all fired up and like play pretty well defense. It's just a matter of like they'll go in there and they'll do their thing, and then we come back in. Gives us a little bit of a break too, like when we go on the sidelines. So,
well, you talk about the middle position, and I just think it's the most difficult position to play. It's kind of like a lineman in football. You know, you're a grunt. You don't get much recognition. So certainly the position of the libero has allowed that position to rest a little bit for when you go back in, because you're right, we do expect an awful lot of the middle. What kind of a mentality does it take to play that position?
it takes like as Coach Johnson told me, it takes like a G.I. Joe personality. You know, you gotta be fired up, gotta get the team all motivated and everything to go. And it's just like constant force, constant drive you gotta have, and just go out there and do your thing. Just be as forceful as possible. You know, just show them who's boss out there.
If you were talking to the fans watching the show, or the fans that come and watch us play, what would you tell them to specifically look for in the position that you play?
I guess on our team, it's not so much the offensive factor, but like more the blocking, just being aggressive, trying to touch as many balls as I can, and if I get a good hit, just or whoever's in there, you know, if we get a good set, you know, good bounce or something, that's like the main things. Just blocking, hitting, just putting the ball away as much as possible, you know, when we get set. And then
when you look at this position, and obviously we are allowed to train from the middle of October for a short period of time in the fall, and then of course during our regular season. What does a person who plays this position have to do in the off season to really be able to excel?
They gotta keep on it. They gotta keep working hard, working on the quickness. Like I guess beach training would be real beneficial. Just get in the sand, because I live like right near Lake Michigan, so I have the opportunity to go down there and run in the sand, because it develops a little bit of quickness, and stay as active as possible. That's the main thing. Play as much as possible. It's definitely touch as many balls as you can. That's gonna be the main thing. And then,
well, certainly we all know that conditioning program is real important in the off season, and especially in that position that you play, because as you alluded to earlier, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of running. It's a lot of jumping. It's a lot of movement. You got to defend not only the quick, got to defend the outside and all that kind of stuff. If you had one piece of advice for young people who aspire to play middle blocker, what would it be?
Be an outside hitter.
Be an outside hitter. Don't be a middle hitter.
Don't be a middle hitter.
Huh?
No, if you like it, stick with it and just drive every time. That's the main thing. Just make, like, as you said, make every play like it's your last. Just kind of go out there, fight for it as much as possible, and just do your thing.
Well, we know that this position is obviously very critical. It's the anchor of our team, and with you and Mike and Angel, the progress that we've made, especially in the last 3 weeks, is just really, really good. And so we're looking forward to having you be successful the rest of the year. If you'll just stay with us, we'll be back in a few minutes with our SID Mike Jewell. My guest here has been Josh Sanders, and Josh, thanks for coming in and spending some time with us. We'll be right back.
What would you do if you had to choose between the buffalo and the giraffes? Between a flower or an elephant? What would you choose? What if you had to decide between a 100-year-old tree and a 1,000,000-year-old beach? Between drinking clean water or breathing clean air? Would you make the right choice? Would there be a right choice? Now there's a way to help. Not just one, but all these things. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. It's one choice we can all live with. Ask your employer about workplace giving.
Hey, welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. This is your host, Coach Ball, standing in for Mr. Franke, who once again is still in California. We thought maybe he'd be back by now, but I guess he must have missed his flight. Mike, tell us a little bit about what an SID is or does.
Typically, your SID is the person that keeps track of all your statistics.
Excuse me, let me interrupt you just for a second.
Uh-oh.
No. This is not a trick question. I said SID, you said SID. People may not know what those three letters stand for. Can you tell us what they stand for?
Actually, they stand for Sports Information Director.
Okay.
And what a Sports Information Director does is they keep track of statistics, typically web pages, and they are the main source of any information that you need from any athletic team that is on the campus.
So when, and I'm going to give this address right now, ipfw.edu, which is our website, which is a university website. And if you go on into that website and then look up athletics, you do all that information. Is that correct?
Correct. We sit down, and at the end of the game, we'll take a box score and we'll generate it into HTML and put it straight out on the web page.
Mike, how much time does it take to not only set up the websites and put in the information, but I know you also do the media guides, you have to do the game programs, actually oversee the scores table, at home events. But in particular, how much time does it take to do the statistical part of being an SID?
Typically, you're looking to put in about 65, maybe 70 hours a week, which isn't too bad, especially once you get a set schedule of what you want done going, and that typically takes about a year's time. Once you're in that office for about a year, you'll have a set standard that you'll knock about 15 hours off that time, and you'll be out around roughly about 55 hours a week you'll actually work.
So you're one of those guys that's married but not married.
That's what my wife says.
I think that's true of everybody who's involved in athletic administration or coaching or whatever. Certainly, the best piece of advice I ever got from anyone at the university where I went down at Ball State was from a guy by the name of Jim Hinga, was the old basketball coach, and he said, if you're going to get in coaching, make sure you choose a perfect wife who understands all the time you have to put in. Fortunately, I've done that, and apparently you have done the same thing in regards to what you do. Let's talk. This is supposed to be the coach's show talking about the volleyball team, and really haven't done much of that other than talking with Josh about his position. Obviously, you've seen us play all the home matches this year, of which we haven't been home a whole lot, but the 2 matches at the Coliseum this weekend, the 3 straight match set win over Pacific, and then again the 3-set win over Penn State. From your perspective, give us a little evaluation of those 2 matches.
Actually, from my perspective, what I've seen, especially in the Pacific game, it was a more upbeat team now that we have John Thompson playing libero. He brings a lot of spunk into the lineup, and first time he goes out there, he's clamping, ranting and raving, just going crazy, and everybody responds to him very well. It's something that I saw that put a little more spark under our feet when we went against Pacific. Not knowing what Pacific can do, considering they've been up and down all year long, what I've seen on the West Coast, I wasn't sure how they were going to come after us, because at one time, the exhibition game they played at the beginning of the season, they took out Long Beach State, who's now #1 in the nation. And I was a little concerned of what we could do against them, but the attitude that they brought into the Coliseum was the attitude that you would need to get to the Final Four, bring home a national title.
Well, we certainly were pleased with the performance of our players, the consistency that we haven't had, maybe not all year, but certainly parts of the year. And John Thompson has made a difference in our attitude, that's for sure. So we're pleased, and hopefully we can build upon that. Give us a little perspective in a very short period of time we have back on because you keep track of all this, on what's happening nationally.
What I've seen happen nationally recently is the West Coast teams have been basically beating the daylights out of each other. This weekend, Pepperdine ended up losing, which sort of was a shocker. And then you have USC, who's sort of a quiet but not real quiet team that's going to come out of there, and they can beat you at any given time. Some of the smaller teams, like, well, I wouldn't even call them smaller, like BYU and Hawaii, they haven't been as consistent as I thought they would. They started out real hot, starting to beat everybody, but then they've sort of hit a down slump, and they're going up and down on the West Coast. Now that Ohio State's out on the West Coast taking on them, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think a lot of them are going to shake each other up, and when it comes down to who goes to the Final Four, it might not be the team we expect.
Yeah, and I know following all that information that you give me all the time, and of course you mentioned Ohio State, and they're out on the West Coast as we speak, playing USC, Pepperdine, and 2 BYU matches. A very, very difficult schedule. I'm glad one that we don't have. And we get asked all the time, just like I'm sure you do, since we're hosting the NCAA Finals, who's going to be here? Who's going to be here? We don't know who's going to be here. You know, even like the NCAA basketball tournament, you know, all those upsets. I think this NCAA volleyball thing is just going to be so unpredictable at the end of the year that no one's really going to be able to tell. And of course, everybody says from our perspective, well, you and Ohio State, well, we know that Quincy just went out and beat Santa Barbara last weekend and went 5 with Northridge, and Northridge went 5 with USC. So we got some teams in our own conference that I think are going to be very, very competitive at the end of the year. So this whole thing is really up in the air. We're just real pleased that our team is now playing what we think is a real consistent level, and hopefully will continue to do so. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for being on the show today and for all the work you do. And by the way, the information you gave me on Pacific was right on, and I got the lineup correct without even looking at videotape. So I appreciate that very much.
No problem.
I want to thank you, thank everybody for watching. Remember that the George Mason match this Friday will be on Channel 56 at 7 p.m. And I want to thank also our sponsors, Touchstone Energy and Fujifilm USA. For Mark Franke, who's still in California, this is Coach Ball saying thank you for watching.
Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. This week we will be previewing our conference matches with Ball State and Clark College. Coach Dave Schmidlin is our guest, and when we return, Arnie and I will talk about last week's wins over Lewis and Rutgers. So please stay with us.
Brian's a student that I had in my resource class. Came from a very poor background. Brian just needed a friend, so we paired him with a community leader. He would take him to rodeos, and then he would take him to plays and different things that this child would never have been exposed to. This man taking his time to come and have lunch with him meant more than anything.
Point a kid in the right direction. This is General Colin Powell of America's Promise. Call us and help keep America's Promise.
Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Mark Franke, and our sponsors this week are Fujifilm and Touchstone Energy, a consortium of area REMCs. Well, Arnie, we had 2 wins last week, important wins, I think. Lewis on Friday night, big conference match that we needed, and then we had Rutgers from the East Coast in on Saturday night. Things went pretty well, and I had an opportunity Friday night at Pizza Hut, where we always go after Friday night matches, to chastise your wife for calling me lazy on this show.
I paid for that.
You paid for that? Actually, you're the one who said she called me lazy.
Thanks.
That's right.
I really.
You paid for that?
I'm still paying for that.
She was supposed to submit a written apology, but that didn't come.
I think she's taking it out on me.
She's taking it out.
It doesn't have anything to do with being in writing either.
Well, Eric Clayus said I'm getting fat, so lazy, fat. I just need someone to call me stupid, and I've got a hat trick here of.
You want me to work on that?
You want to work on that? Coach Schmidlin's coming on. He'll do that. He'd be happy to
Yeah,
do
because
that.
he can back it up. I can't back it up, but he can.
That Lewis match. We're going into that. They were only one loss behind us in the conference. They were tied with us in the national poll. And, of course, our rivalry with Lewis has always been an intense one, and those matches tend to be emotional.
You know, I think this is going to be one of the best shows we've ever had. You know that?
Why is that?
Because finally, it's just us. We don't have to mess with Mel, Dan. I mean, it's just us and John.
Yeah, we have no cameramen out here.
I mean, this is going to be
these cameras must be working by magic.
It's either that or we're getting down towards the end of the school year and they're all bailing.
That's
or
right.
our ratings have dropped so bad that nobody wants to be part of this organization anymore. Or maybe John's just a slave driver as a boss.
Well, actually, last week I know that our ratings doubled because there were 2 people who watched it.
Well, you know what? Probably next week when Kelly Hartley comes on, the women's coach, it'll probably quadruple because finally
We'll be up to 4?
Finally, we'll have a female face on this show. Finally.
Okay.
John just said that's
John
okay.
said amen.
He likes that idea.
Yeah, that's right.
Huh?
Well, I still think you ought to keep working on the 3 Rogaine boys from the.
That's next, and I talked to them. Remember, I told you that. I talked to them, and they're pretty excited about it coming on. I just don't know how we're going to get those big afros all in the same picture.
Well, they back those cameras up 20 or 30 feet. They might be able to pick them up.
You think?
Yeah.
That'll be great.
So actually, Schmidlin's the low point of our guest season. Now we go uphill after
Actually,
this.
I
Is
don't
that what
think
you're
that's
saying?
true, no, because, you know, if I recall, the last time we had him on, we had his, remember we put his phone number up there because
That's
he's looking for a young lady? I think he's found one, so it's kind of a high point now instead of a low
Well,
point.
I figured he must have a romantic interest in his life because I saw him cleaning out the inside of his car the other day. And when he comes on, we'll talk to Dave about the Matador, the classic car of the IPFW coaching staff.
You noticed that he had to come to my house, so
He had to
it was
come
my
to your house to
sweeper
borrow a
clean it out.
sweeper, that's right.
But I was more than willing to help him out. More
Yeah.
than willing.
Well, good. Dave's still sitting back there in the studio. He hasn't bolted yet, but I can imagine what he's thinking.
I don't know sure how he's going to get the oil off my driveway, though, that the Matador.
Did the Matador leaked oil?
Just a tad.
Well, I know. I've got a Matador leak in my driveway, too. We all know where he's been. Lewis.
That's a school up by Chicago.
That's a school by Chicago that we've now beaten twice this season. And actually, they came in with an awful lot to play for because if they had beaten us, beaten Ohio State, and with a little help from another lost by Ohio State, they could have conceivably finished at the top of the conference.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, that's right.
It's a pleasure to whoop on Lewis.
But
Has been for a long time.
But it's also a pleasure to whoop on Ball State. We're taping this on a Tuesday. We play Wednesday night. We'll be talking about them in the last segment. I know you like whooping on them, too.
I like beating Lewis better.
Like beating Lewis better? Mm-hmm. So your season's over as far as you're concerned? You've reached the
pinnacle.
The pinnacle.
I'm done. It's up to you and the players from here on out, and Coach Schmidley.
Yeah, well, good thing we got Dave here.
I've done my part.
Okay. So what was the key at the Lewis match, you think?
Geez, I don't know. You know, the longer the match went, the worse I thought we kind of played. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. I'm thinking about Rutgers. Sorry about that. Rutgers was the really ugly one. Lewis, key. We didn't play very good to start with, did we?
No.
We were kind of flat. We didn't pass very well. We didn't play very good. But the longer the match went, the more consistent we were with all phases of the game, and I thought the last game and a half maybe as good as we played all year.
Yeah, you're probably right. We Edgardo Denise, their setter, started jump serving on us, and we let a couple of them even drop to the floor without anybody touching them, and that hurt us in game one. And then at least strong again in game two, but then he kind of backed off. But Eduardo Quinones, he must have hit 50%. We didn't touch him all night, but he was about all the offense they had left by the end of the night.
You know, early they were able to really pass our serve and run middle. And, you know, with the Zambo kid being hurt, and they moved Alfonso out to the opposite, who's the other young man from Puerto Rico, he wasn't a dramatic effect out of the back row. So with the tendencies that you had and the things that we knew ahead of time, as more of the match went along, the more we were able to serve in strategic places, and they weren't able to run the middle, had to kick the ball outside because they're just not very good on the backside with Alfonso in there. We were loaded up and blocked a lot of balls. You know, the Getz kid, who Coach Dozier claims plays great against everybody except us, didn't play very good against us. But that's kind of the way it's been the whole time of his career. So I really thought our kids raised the level of play. We were able to run middle a lot more in games 2 and 3. We blocked a lot of balls, played with some enthusiasm, and it was just a nice thing for our kids, I thought, in the way we played games 2 and 3 especially.
Yeah, they clearly were up for it. It just took them a little while to get on track. And as I told you after the match, I thought Scott Lane was really critical near in Game 2 when we looked like we were struggling again. We're going to fall behind. And in fact, if we'd lost Game 2, we'd probably lost that match in 3.
Well, certainly when you lose the first game and you lose the second game, it makes it a little more difficult. But I agree with you with Scotty. I thought also the other key was Jeff Patek's float serve. You know, and none of these teams that we played have the second time have seen that serve, and he's very good with it. And they had a really hard time in Game 2. If you remember, we ran a string of 4 or 5 points in a row, maybe even longer than that, with Jeff serving and Scotty's hitting, and it really turned the tempo of the game and the emotion of the game in our favor.
When I did this serving stats after the match, Jeff was really strong. You see in the fourth game, his serving fell off, and I think probably it was fatigue. He still got that knee problem, and I think he just got a little tired. He put so much into the match to that point.
Well, I really think that serve is going to create a lot of problems for the teams we play, once again, because they haven't seen it, and it's very good.
And we'll talk with Coach Schmidl about serving, since he's the one who calls them.
It's his job.
It's his job. So
he's the one who gets yelled at when it doesn't go right.
That's right. Every time we have a service error, it's Dave's fault.
That's right. That's exactly right. And he's done really a good job, and so we look forward to continuing that the rest of the year.
Well, when we return, Dave will join us. We'll talk a little bit about what he does with serving, but he also does a number of other things for the team, and we'll talk about those as well. So please keep it here on Channel 56.
What would you do if you had to choose between the buffalo and the giraffes? Between a flower or an elephant? What would you choose? What if you had to decide between a 100-year-old tree and a 1,000,000-year-old beach? Between drinking clean water or breathing clean air. Would you make the right choice? Would there be a right choice? Now there's a way to help. Not just one, but all these things. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. It's one choice we can all live with. Ask your employer about workplace giving.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. Our guest this week is Coach Dave Schmidlin. Dave is the coach. If you've watched us on Channel 56 or been in the gym, he's the one that sits way on the end of the bench, makes hand gestures at the servers all the time, and in fact, those are not obscene hand gestures. He's actually signaling to them what zone he'd like them to serve into.
Oh, so you think.
So I think, that's right. I don't see it. You got him hidden from me. And he does a number of other things for the team, helps with recruiting and so forth. We're going to talk about all those in a minute, but first, we got to talk about the Matador.
What do you want to know?
The classic car. The rest of us just have normal, everyday cars, and you have a, what year is it?
That's a 1977.
1977 gold Matador.
Made in Fort Wayne.
Made in Fort Wayne?
Fort Wayne American Motors.
No.
Didn't they have a plant here?
No.
Oh.
South Bend, maybe?
I don't know. It says Fort Wayne American Motors on the front license plate. So maybe it was.
Oh, that's probably just the dealer.
Well, I don't know my Fort Wayne history.
No,
well enough,
there was I think a Rambler plant in South Bend.
Okay.
I'm not sure though.
Well, it's nice to know I've been leaving my mark in Fort Wayne. Too bad it's just an oil spot, you know.
Well, the other thing we have to talk to you about is you're an alumnus of IPFW, having graduated with your degree last year after going part-time while you've been coaching, but you started your academic career at Michigan State. So I imagine that last night, this is a Tuesday when we record these things, Monday night, I suspect you were glued to the TV set.
Oh yeah, that was a great thing to see. That was really nice to see the Spartans pull one out finally.
In fact, on Saturday night when we were playing, while Michigan State was playing, you were getting notes slipped to you on the bench throughout the night.
Yeah, I had our trainer going back and forth, making sure that we kept update. Maybe that's why we were serving so well. I was busy.
That's right. You weren't thinking too much about it. One other Michigan State story, the bus trip where we are, I forget where we were going, out maybe to the Mississippi River, and we're watching Rudy. Who were we playing?
Oh, geez.
I don't know, but anyways, Arnie puts on the Rudy film, thinks it's going to be a real a real motivator for the team. You know, Rudy, the Notre Dame football player who was on the pickup team for 4 years, and finally the last game of his career he gets in to play. Mm-hmm. And you were told your story about how when you played football for Michigan State, you caught a touchdown pass against Notre Dame.
Yep, that was. I hate Notre Dame, so I hate Rudy. Yeah, but yeah, we were caught a touchdown. We went up 7-3. Unfortunately, that was probably the highlight of the game right there, because we ended up losing 35-10 back when Tony Rice was the quarterback and no one could contain him. But they couldn't contain me either.
Well, yeah, at least on one pass, right? Well, the amazing thing was none of the players believed you. But I think it had something to do with the story you told them out in Hawaii about how you had a steel plate in your head. And they did believe that one for a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised.
Those guys. I don't know why would you have how could somebody have a steel plate in their head? But they bought it.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about serving. You part of your job, of course, is to call the serve, which means you have to know how well players are serving. You have to know what they're good at. That means all week long you have to work with them on their serving at practice and so forth.
Yeah, I sit there in practice. And normally what I'm doing these days is just watching what they're doing in practice and going off of what I feel they're comfortable with and what their strengths are at this point. It's a little bit different than last year. Last year, the teams we played against, they always had a middle or somebody who was a non-ball handler who helped. And that is part of the reason that our serving hasn't been as effective as last year. This year, we need to be more accurate. And the guys are trying, I think that's something the guys have been struggling with. So I've tried to stay in their comfort zone as much as possible, and hopefully our matchups by rotation end up working out well for us, like Jeff Pittak this weekend against Lewis.
And you changed his serve from a traditional sharp jumper, hard jumper, to that float jumper.
Well, he changed it himself, actually. Obviously,
Intentionally? You never know with Jeff.
Yeah, really. It just would be a fling with him. But obviously, the traditional jump serve is more demanding on him physically. And with his physical problems with his knee at the moment, the jump float is not as stressful on him. It's easier for him to land. It's easier for him to control. And actually, he's our most effective server at this point. When he's a natural at it.
One server all year who's maintained his edge more or less is Scott Lane. He was probably our best last year. He and Chris Gislin were pretty much neck and neck all year. This year, he's the only one who's consistently making the serving goals that we set.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's more of a mental. He hasn't let the other, the changes in the game between this year and last year affect the way he handles things, and that's just his maturity level. Obviously, he's the older. Plus, he worked hard in the summer to maintain a level of physical ability throughout the season, which he was up and down last year, but he's been much more consistent this year and done a good job with that.
Last year we were known probably as the toughest serving team in the nation, and when we got to the NCAAs, Chris Gislin, who was he and Scott were neck and neck pretty much all year as far as our most effective servers. He had a pinched nerve in his shoulder and he couldn't really serve effectively, and that seemed to carry over this year in that his serve was really erratic and not very sharp at all until just the last couple of weeks. It looks like maybe he's found his groove again with serving.
I hope so, and you're right. He has been really tentative for at least half of the season. Out in California, spring break, especially against Long Beach, he started ripping it again. We sit there and work on him trying to figure out a new toss for him and a new contact point. But against Lewis, he did very well. And he was able, that ace on that short serve for the match point, or not match point, but against Rutgers for match point, tells me that he's getting more confidence and he's feeling pretty confident again.
Two servers who just have float servers and they don't hit it hard at all, but we seem to be scoring points off their rotations. Josh Sanders this weekend, we scored very well off his serve, which looks like it's probably the easiest serve we've got on the team. Even Mike Cummings, there are some nights when people can't handle his floater. What do you attribute that to?
Well, they're both 6'8", and where the ball's coming at these guys above the net, it drops later and it hits that end line. It's hard for these guys to adjust because a lot of teams have sort of come up and move up and dare us to serve short because thinking that our deep floaters aren't very strong. But those things go with those guys' heads, and at the last minute they got to overhand pass it. And just the fact that these guys have enough control where they can get the ball to where I want it to go. So we are able to dictate the offense a little bit. And that's all we're looking for from those guys. Plus we have pretty good blocking rotations up there with them, with Chris and Hector usually. And plus Scott Lane has become a much more effective blocker, so it's made our serving look a little better too.
The other main thing you do in addition to your game day duties and practices, you help Arnie with recruiting. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do there?
Well, it's basically sit on the phone, talk to kids, talk to coaches, get out on the road when we get a chance, and just follow up on leads. And just today we're sitting there going, we need a few more bodies. Who do we go out and beat the phones with? So that's pretty much it. In the summer and in the late spring is when you start picking up, hitting the road, looking see if anybody slips through the cracks and looking at kids for the next 2 recruiting classes and trying to build up a base there.
You've always got a list of juniors you're looking at for the following year, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you have to plan 2 or 3 years ahead. Just I think you need at least a list of 20 kids to work with, because it usually whittles down to 2 or 3.
Well, we've got 4 seniors on this team in our starting lineup, so you've got a lot of holes to fill, don't you?
Yeah. And it still remains to be seen how we're going to fill them. And we had a nice commitment coming up here in April, which we cannot talk about yet until after he signs, after the signing date comes by. But with the international players coming into play more now, our talent pool is increasing every year. And it'd be nice if the U.S. would be able to increase their talent pool, which it seems to be slowly but surely. And USA Volleyball is helping us out a little bit, at least pointing us in the right direction and what kind of kids are out there and where they're at. So
In terms of the junior programs.
junior programs and the development programs and so forth. So we'll just see what happens.
Well, you were able to watch one of your alma maters win a national championship last night. I think maybe first weekend in May you might see your other alma mater do the same.
Well, keep them crossed.
Well, no, no one will understand what that means for a serve. That's a signal that you don't use for serves.
No. So.
Okay. All right. That's Coach Dave Schmidlin from the IPFW volleyball staff. When we return, Arnie and I will talk about the Ball State match, which is tomorrow night, and then Saturday.
As the American military gets smaller, who will be there to answer the call? They will. They're the National Guard and Reserve, and they make up half of today's military forces. As an employer, you may be asked to support their mission. Remember, their response depends on yours.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. Arnie, we have 4 conference matches left before we go into the conference tournament. This week, Saturday night at the Gates Center, we're playing Clark College. Now that one will not be televised on Channel 56, so you'll need to come out to see it. That'll be at 7 o'clock. But Wednesday night, which is tomorrow for us, we're taping on Tuesday, we travel to Ball State to play the Cardinals. And we beat them here earlier in the season. And I saw that Ball State got beat by Loyola this last weekend, which was kind of a surprise. So they probably are ready for some revenge on somebody. Hopefully not us.
Yeah, the Loyola match, looking at the stats from both teams, apparently Loyola's got most of their players back playing. Groves was playing and a couple of the other kids. Ball State played 12 guys, and they played them quite a bit. So trying to put anything together in regards to scouting other than when we played them is rather difficult. So Joel must be playing the Ball State philosophy, you know, Coach Shondell philosophy, roll them in until you find somebody who can play.
That's right. When things go bad, you start changing bodies, and it's amazing how often that would work for them.
Yeah, well, it didn't work this time.
Didn't work this time.
So that loss really hurts them in regards to the standings concern. You know, I was on their website last week, and their coach is still talking about the possibility of them being first in the conference. Well, that's gone for sure. So unless we were to really goof up somehow or another here in these next 4 matches, we're pretty much assured of second place in the conference with our victory over Lewis.
And Mercyhurst beat Quincy. Quincy was really making a run to be perhaps number 5 in the seed, and because they'd beaten Loyola twice, and then Mercyhurst beat them.
Yeah, I don't know where that must have been at Mercyhurst, because I see Mercyhurst. Quincy played Mercyhurst and Ohio State, and I know that one was at Ohio State. Yeah. So it must have been that long trip. But Mercyhurst is not a bad team. I mean, you know, we've played them twice, and we've struggled with them both times. And so this conference has just gotten much stronger across the board than in the past years.
What in particular are we going to do tomorrow night against Ball State?
Well, hope that we can get them in a position where they have to play a lot of players again, which means they're not playing very well. You know, Ball State's biggest problem is actually 2 problems. Number 1 is they're relatively young, and number 2 is the setter is he's too little. And I don't mean that to be a derogatory statement, because I'm a little guy too, but he is a definite liability, and they've got to really move him around. Sitting home watching tape last night, just seeing where they try to play him, really creates a problem for them.
Well, they can move him from typically the right side, which is the strong side against our Hector and Jeff. They can move them to the other side, and they got Scott.
Yeah, it's just we create a real problem for them. The other thing is that they've got to be carried by Mark Lau, who's the middle, and of course the Hughes kid, who's at the opposite, because Mark has not lived up to his billing, at least not up to this point. And the rest of the kids are just young kids learning how to play the game. So if we could serve consistently like we did against Lewis, not like Rutgers, but against Lewis, and not allow them to get the ball to Mark Lau, where they've really got to kick it to the outside or back to Hughes. And Hughes, against Clark the other day, he only hit 17%, and so he's got to play better than that for them if they're going to have a chance to beat us. If we can just maintain our consistency and not have a problem with their serve down in that big arena. You know, Jeff and Hector both played down there, so it shouldn't be too big of an adjustment for them. I think we have a good chance of winning.
When they were in Fort Wayne at the spring fling a couple of weekends ago, they also used Tegethoff a lot. They set him an awful lot, both out of the back row and on the left side.
Yeah, and he's not a real big concern to me. You know, I mean, he's a nice player, but he has some problems passing, and he's one of the guys we'll go after. He and the libero both have some problems passing, so we'll go after both those guys, you know, right away. And Tegethoff is primarily just a left side hitter. He doesn't do any swinging or anything. And if we serve well, then he becomes real predictable. He's cross court, all cross court kind of stuff. But I know they set him a lot, and of course we set a lot of with Jeff and Hector middle back, you know, that pipe set. So we're used to defending that. That's not an issue for us. I'm not real concerned about him. Certainly, I don't want Market to get hot. I think Market could get hot against us, and he's never done that, but he always could. So he's a concern for me, and Lau's a concern for me, and certainly Hughes. Those three guys are the guys that I'd be most concerned about. Tegethoff is an okay player. He's not a great player. He has the potential to be really a good player someday, but he's still a young guy.
Yeah, it'd be the same kind of thing that we've faced with a lot of other teams the last couple of years. We're so strong in so many ways that if we play well, the other teams have to spend their time worrying about how to deal with us.
Well, that's certainly true. And you know, in the middle, I mean, they've got to rely upon their middle offensively, and their setter likes to push the middle, but he's not real good at it out of system. So it's something that we can certainly take advantage of with our serving. Ball State is traditionally a backcourt defensive team. This is not as good a defensive team as maybe they've had in the past. When we played them here at home the last time, we actually outdug them. So the other thing that we will do right from the very beginning is to hit some off-speed shots like we did against Penn State and we did against Lewis, because they're going to sit back there with Jeff and Hector and Scotty and just try and dig those balls. So we'll loosen them up right from the very beginning. And if we can have success in our middles like we did last weekend, they just can't defend us.
Well, that's Wednesday night at Ball State. Saturday night again, Clark College here at the Gates Center. It's not televised, so you'll need to come out at 7 o'clock for that. It's a conference match, so it's important. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
Everything's important at this point.
Everything's important at this point. For head coach Arnie Ball, our guest, Coach Dave Schmidlin, I'm Mark Franke. Thanks for joining us. Oh, and don't forget our sponsors, Fujifilm and Touchstone Energy. Thanks for watching, and join us again next week. Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. This week we're going to talk about our final conference weekend at home against Loyola and Quincy. We're going to review our conference wins last week against Clark and Ball State. And we have three of the most unusual guests we've ever had on this show, and that says a lot given our players. So you'll want to stick with us on this one.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform. Millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Welcome to this week's Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Mark Franke, and once again, our sponsors are Fujifilm and Touchstone Energy, a consortium of the local area REMCs. Well, Arnie, last week we had a couple of important matches. Clark at home. It was important because it gave you a chance to play some freshmen, and they did very well. We want to talk about that. But on Wednesday night, which was during the middle of the week, we went down to Ball State and won in 3, which is always a nice way to do it in Muncie, Indiana. Right?
Aren't you impressed with the way I look today? I don't have my sweats on, and I don't have my... I'm all dressed up.
Did
just
Sandy buy you another new shirt?
Don't you think I look really nice?
Sandy bought you another new shirt, didn't she?
Well, I'm allowed one a year, and this is my time of the year to
Your
get
time of the year,
a new shirt.
Don't you want to save it for the conference tournament?
No, I want to wear it for you today. Because you always make me look so bad when you're all dressed up and I look like kind of scuzzy.
I have a day job. I'm not a coach who can just works 2 nights a weekend. Just work Friday night, Saturday. I don't know what you do the rest of the
Are
week.
you trying to say I don't have a job or what?
Well, I have a day job. I got to go to the office every day.
I should have. I put my hairpiece on to match your 3 guests coming up. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, you would definitely need a hairpiece if you're going to match our guests. You're not going to do it naturally. That's for sure.
Well, maybe Dan, the cameraman, would loan me some of his hair.
I don't think you want to borrow anything from Dan, the cameraman. That's just a piece of free personal advice.
Now that he's back on the job with us.
He finally came back after a 3-week hiatus. I don't know what he was doing.
I don't know, but it's been really peaceful.
Yeah.
John, can we ask him to go back and do whatever else he was doing again?
Yeah, we had.
John?
We didn't have to do any retakes or anything while he was gone, did we? No. See, so John says everything went fine. So now let's see if we can get to Ball State, because we have to talk about Ball State and Clark quickly, because I want to reserve some extra time for our 3 guests today.
We won 3-0 both times.
We sure did. And at Ball State, the scores looked close, but actually we controlled all 3 games, didn't we? Every time they tried to come back on us, we shut them off and jumped out to another lead.
Well, game 1 was pretty easy for us, even though in the beginning it was back and forth, then we just took control. Game 2 was 8-0.
And then
we were ahead.
And then they came back.
But we forgot we were ahead.
Yeah.
We said, oh, let's make this interesting. So then we let them catch back up, and then we won, and then game 3 we kind of controlled also. I thought we played okay for a game and a half, and then we just became kind of passive in regards to our ability to serve and side out consistently. I thought we still blocked. We didn't block a ball in the first game, but we touched a lot of balls, as you recall, and took advantage of that. In the last game and a half, we blocked some balls. Chris, in particular, I thought blocked some balls. Chris's blocking has gotten better again, and it kind of had a lull. Now I think it's back to being better again. But we also outdug Ball State, and that's the 2nd time this year we've done that, and we've never done that. So we're pleased with our defensive progress.
I think the motivation you gave the players before the match really helped. You told them if we were out of the gym by 9 o'clock, we'd go to Pizza King. Otherwise, it's to McDonald's drive-through, right?
And we ended up going to Pizza King.
We went to Pizza King.
We were all happy. I was really happy.
Everybody was happy but Coach Johnson, who didn't make the trip with us, and everybody knows that's his favorite place from his old student days.
That's what he gets to going to Florida.
That's what he gets for going to Florida.
Yeah, I thought it was really a good match for us. And the other thing that was good was that Panos came in all 3 games, and not only served well but dug some balls and did some really nice things to kind of pick us up when we needed some picking up. And so I'm real pleased that he was able to do that for us.
Well, then on Saturday night, Panos got to start. Panos and Aris both. We had the Heracleos brothers on the pins out there on the left side. That was...
I got to tell you that yesterday in practice, Aris is running right for me before we ever start, and I know exactly what he wants. Exactly what he wants. with a videotape in hand.
He wants a copy.
I want a copy. Coach, can I have a copy of Clark? Clark, I want Clark.
He wants to send it home to mom and dad, doesn't he?
Okay, the two bros get to start in the same match, and man, they got to have a copy, and rightfully so. And you know what? They played really well. I thought they both did really a nice job, and it was nice to be able to rest Jeff and Hector, because down the stretch, obviously we're going to need those two guys to be physically a little stronger than what they have been.
And you also brought in Jeff Schmitz to play a game, and he played real well in Game 3.
Well, we started Josh Sanders also, if you remember, who normally doesn't start, and I thought Josh did a good job offensively. We still got to work on his blocking stuff, but offensively he did a really nice job. And then, of course, we brought Jeff Schmitz in, and we also brought Matthew Kent in, and both those kids did a really nice job for us.
So it was really freshman day, wasn't it? We got senior night coming up on Saturday night, but last Saturday night was freshman night, wasn't it?
Well, you know, our schedule has been so difficult for us to get some of those kids some playing time, and the only way they get better is to play. And of course, they play and practice every day, but it's not the same as a game situation when the TV cameras are rolling, or when the fans are there, or the Mastodons are there, or whatever. So that was a good experience for us. It's always one that I'm a little reserved to experiment so much with, because it's a conference match, and I don't want to lose conference matches. Not that we would lose, but it makes it a little more difficult on my old ticker. So. But I'm really pleased that those kids got a chance to play, and they did really well.
And I think it also helped the older kids sitting on the bench. They were into the match. They were enthusiastic. They were supporting the youngsters.
You know, two biggest cheerleaders were Hector and Jeff, and then of course we took Mike. Or we didn't start Mike, but he's a great that way too. You know, if we had a backup setter, I'd have taken Chris Gislin out, but we don't have anybody that can play that position, so he had to stay in and play. Certainly we took Scotty Lane out, and he did the same thing. So it's good for those younger kids to see the older kids back there and cheering them on and having a good time.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that Coach Schmidlin was really on calling serves. And the players were serving where he told them. We had some aces that you would never expected to have been aces.
Well,
on short serves and floaters.
Part of the reason for that probably is because Jeff and Hector weren't playing. Those are the two guys that can't get it where he wants it. So those young guys know they either get it where he wants it, or he's mad at him forever. You know, the next 4 years. So they get it in there.
Well, you mentioned the Mastodons, and in case you don't know what an Mastodon is, you're going to find out in the next segment, because we have all three of them here in the flesh, or I should say in the hair. And this is going to be one of the most interesting interviews I've ever done. And after interviewing some of our players, that's saying a lot.
I just hope you get the names right.
I will get the names right, I'll guarantee it. So you'll want to stick with us, because this will be fun.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Sally's having some behavioral problems.
I guess that reward system isn't working.
Well, the timeouts weren't either.
You know, parents do find that timeouts aren't...
See?
Well, you're just too lenient.
Well, you're too strict.
No, you are.
No, you are.
No, you are.
No, you are.
When adults don't have the answers, they can feel as frustrated as kids. ConnectForKids.org has thousands of resources for helping kids in your community. ConnectForKids.org, guidance for grown-ups.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. As I said earlier at the introduction of the program, we have a very special guest this week. Instead of having players, we have IPFW's three most enthusiastic fans for the volleyball program, we think, as some call them the Mastodons, or I call them the Rogaine boys. They've, compared to sitting next to Arnie Ball on the bench, they have rather substantial heads of hair, don't they? These are three students here at IPFW from Angola, and in spite of what a member who does not want her name mentioned of our coaching staff, Lisa Horman, said, that's not a city north of Auburn, that is a country on the southwest coast of Africa. And they're here as exchange students, probably isn't the right word, but as international students attending here at IPFW. Now we're going to go through these names, and we're going to see if we can get them right. Starting on the outside, on my left, in the gold shirt, is Marco Gomez.
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Oh, I got it backwards.
That's Gomez.
Okay. Marco Rodriguez on the left.
Yeah.
And in the middle is Tano Bayon. Bayon.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my right in the orange is Terrell Gomez. The names might sound somewhat familiar to people who follow the program because of all of the Puerto Rican players, but in fact, Angola has a Portuguese background, it's a Portuguese colony, and the names have, and the official language is Portuguese, right?
Right, it is.
And the names will be then familiar to someone who speaks Portuguese. How'd you end up at IPFW?
Long story.
Long story. It's been a long trip.
Well, that's the first trip we had for a long time, but it is a long story.
Okay. Well, you're...
we don't want to go into details how we came here. We're just here and we like to be here.
Okay, we don't want to talk about it. Okay.
Basically, it's just like there's a company in a country that has like scholarships, and they have a scholarship program, and the school that they chose is IPFW. That's why we're here.
Okay.
There's like a group.
That's not the same as the West African Management Company or whatever.
Yeah, it is.
They work together.
They work through West African Management.
We have a number of students here that are through that. Okay, good. You came here. What are you all studying? Daryl?
I take a civil engineering technology.
Civil engineering and
computer science.
Computer science. So
Computer science also.
Computer science. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in the volleyball program? Were you volleyball fans back home in Angola, or did you just develop an interest here?
Well, I like to play sports, and volleyball was one of the sports that we only play on the beach. And, well, not we, but I would say my friends and I. And when we got here, we heard that the team was really good, and we decided to do something different. Because the first time I came and watched a game here was like in '97, I think. '97, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was by myself, and I was the only one wearing a wig, and it didn't work out the way it's supposed to. But last year in '98, I mean, we all decided to, to come up and just cheer up for the team, and we had good results.
I remember the first time we saw you walk in. With the wig, we kind of kept our eye on you. Weren't sure what the deal was. And as a matter of fact, seems to me, if I recall right, you were cautioned by the officials a couple weeks ago.
Actually, I was one time.
A little energetic?
No, because we have a limit to sharing for the team. So we have the blue line, so we cannot touch it on our crossing. And one of those days, I was so excited that I couldn't stop myself, and I crossed a little bit of the blue line. And the referee came after me and said, if I cross again, he would have thrown me out of the game.
Actually, I wouldn't say that was the referee that got his attention. I think was the other team's coach. Yeah, because they were feeling the pressure and they wanted to do something about it. And they couldn't kick us out just like that, and they gave us a warning just because of him.
For those of you who have been in the gym for our matches at Gates Center or have watched here on Channel 56, the three Afrodons always sit right at mid-court, first row of the bleachers. There's usually 100 students around them, a bunch of little kids sitting there. They're really popular with the fans. They're always on their feet jumping up and down, cheering, yelling, doing whatever. They really provide a lot of enthusiasm for the players. I think the players really appreciate what you do, not only to help them, but also to keep the fans interested and excited about what's going on.
Yeah, basically that's what we do. That's one of the reasons why we do it, because like we didn't see enough support in OA from like for school sports and everything. So we thought it would be fun. We do it as a fun thing, and we help the team too. So it's great.
Well, in my case, I think a little bit high because we won the conference last year, and we know that we all just won one position, which is be the world champion from the whole contest, and I want to be that one. As being a part of the Afrodons, that would make me proud of that.
Did you go up to Lewis last year? Weren't you guys there? You were on the road somewhere last year where we played.
It wasn't. Marco was the only one.
No,
okay, Marco.
Down Lewis. No, I've never.
Somewhere on the road you showed up.
But this time we're gonna do different. We want to be on the road.
Oh. You're gonna go to Ohio State this year?
We went to Ball State.
We went to Ball State
last week.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
Well, it helped with Ball State because every time Ball State tried to come back, we shut them off in 1-3.
It was real good. It was nice.
What do you do? Do you prepare at all for the match? You just come out and do whatever comes natural?
We just grab our wigs and we walk in.
Wigs, our hair. What are you talking about?
That's real hair. That's right.
Yeah. We've been using the Afro game, the Rogaine for a while.
Rogaine I noticed we had a bald official one night. And you were really getting on him, weren't you?
Yeah, we did.
But was not our intention doing that because the crowd has started, and then we just follow.
Yep. Sometimes most of the things we do is not our idea. The crowd just does it first, and they want us to give them the support. And when we do, they just don't say nothing. They just let us do it.
You're kind of like our unofficial cheerleaders, aren't you?
I would say so.
Yeah.
We don't have cheerleaders this year. We had in the past, so you've had to take their place this year. Now, next year, maybe you can be our dance team. You think that'd be good?
Well, we can work on a few moves.
Work on a few moves.
Well, the screaming part won't be our job. It got to be the crowd job.
What else do you do around campus? You belong to any of the clubs or the organizations? Or do you just basically follow IPFW athletics?
Yeah, we follow. It's just athletics, basically, academics. But
actually, I want to be part of the soccer team.
The soccer team?
Yeah.
Is soccer a big sport in Angola?
Yeah. That's the number one sport.
No.
It is the number one sport.
It's still?
Still. Yeah. With basketball, it's being improved now, but
it's getting popular, but soccer is still number one.
Basketball's becoming popular.
Yeah. More than it used to be. It was always popular, but now, like, most of the kids wants to be like Mike, so everybody wants to play basketball.
Are soccer fans as rowdy in Angola as they are in Europe?
Oh, very.
Yeah.
Very. South America?
Very,
big
very. And I would never suggest you to go by yourself to the game. That would never be a good idea.
What kind of competition is played? Is it international against other national teams, or is there a professional league, or every city or town has their own team?
We have a league too. And
within the nation of Angola.
Yes, and then we compete around Africa, and if we qualify, well, we go outside too. We play in the world, but we haven't achieved that one yet.
Are you all from the same city?
Same city, yeah, Luanda.
The capital, right? That's up in the north, near the coast.
Yeah, it is a great place.
What kind of climate do you have there?
Florida.
Is it 20 degrees in April? You're south of the equator, so it'd be the opposite there, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
do you go home over the summer?
Sometimes.
Usually, depends.
Depends.
Where are you at in your studies? What year?
Junior.
Would be sophomore.
Sophomore?
Sophomore.
They're all sophomore, so we've got you all back next year too, right?
Yeah.
We'll be here.
But who's thinking about next year? We're thinking about this year. We got to win that national championship.
I want to think this year first, and then we think next year.
Have you got your tickets to the NCAA's yet?
No. Not yet, but we're gonna work on it.
We'll get them like when we get out of here.
What are you going to do at the Coliseum? You're going to be a little more restricted there as to where you can.
Yeah, no,
they can't do it. They can't do it. They can't do it because we're the Mastodons. So
we pretend that we are the cheerleader. So just just.
You have to go up on the railing or something, or depending on where you're sitting. You have to make sure that people see you, right?
Yep.
So that hopefully we'll be playing there in the NCAA's, and we're going to need your help, all the help you can give us. There's no doubt about that.
We'll be there.
And you're hoping to go to Ohio State for the MIVAs, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We will.
Definitely.
So we've got this weekend at home. You'll, of course, be in the gym. Next weekend we start the tournament in Gates. You'll be there, and then Ohio State, and then the Coliseum, right?
Yeah. And we'll watch the team go all the way to the top.
All the way to the top. Well, they certainly appreciate all the support you've given them. Those are three Afro-Dons who, anyone who's been to the Gates Center for a volleyball match or watched it on Channel 56 will see them because the cameras always focus in on them. And they're our most enthusiastic fans, and if you can believe this, they actually provide more excitement than Coach Arnie Ball does. So when we return, Arnie will come back, and we'll have a commentary from him on how he thinks the Afro-Dons are important to the program. So please stay with us.
Get the keys. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. Arnie, I don't think I've ever seen those three guys sitting still and being quiet for 10 minutes or however long we went that last time in my life.
Well, certainly the camera certainly intimidated them a lot more than a referee does.
Well, the Channel 56 cameras do not intimidate them on Friday and Saturday nights. That's for sure.
It's a little different here in the studio, apparently, because they were pretty sedate.
Oh, shoot. They're something, aren't they?
They're wonderful to have. You know, every program, every university should have people like that. Students like that. I wish the rest of our student body would get as excited as those guys do and come into just our games. You know, they come to the basketball games. They've been out to the baseball. I mean, they support a lot of things because they're just excited about, first of all, being here, and second of all, being part of our programs and creating some excitement not only for themselves but for the fans.
Oh, yeah, fans love them. You see how the little kids come around and sit by them? They're more popular than the Mastodon mascot was when we used to have him.
Yeah, imagine what it would be like if we had the Mastodon and the cheerleaders and you know, and all that all going at one time. They'd have to pick and choose a little bit, but you know, the guys are great. They're really great, and they're wonderful with the little kids. And of course, I think the adults. My mom loves those guys as much as little kids do. So,
well, they are interesting to watch on the bench. In fact, I have to try not to watch them because I'm supposed to be watching the other team. But sometimes they're more interesting.
Well, the other neat thing about them is they're as we've gotten to know them, you know, they're just quality young men who are certainly serious about their studies, but also understand that being part of campus life is important too. And so, you know, we talked a little bit before the segment with the guys about someday maybe getting to go visit them, and that would be fun. I would enjoy doing that.
Well, they have plans to go back to Angola after graduation, and of course, Angola's had a civil war that's been going on for about 20 years. They've had a peaceful period the last several years, but that they had their first elections in '92, and so they want to go back and help rebuild the country. One of them's a civil engineer, and the other two computer scientists. So those skills will be certainly well used, I think, back in Angola.
Well, not only will they do well professionally, but they'll certainly do well socially.
That's right. This weekend, we're going to need their help. We've got our final two conference matches coming up. We have Loyola on Saturday night. We have Quincy on Friday. Or is it the other way around? I thought it was Loyola first.
No, you're right. Quincy first, Loyola second.
Quincy's first, Loyola second. And, of course, both of those will be on Channel 56, but we'd rather have you come out to the Gates Center and watch it in person. Loyola is kind of an enigma, aren't they? They play well some nights, and other nights they don't play well at all. And, of course, we've only lost to Loyola once in the history of their program.
Actually, both teams are kind of that way right now. Quincy has played really well, went up and played Lewis really well. You know, and they're, I think, right now 5th in the conference. Them and Ball State are fighting for that 5th position. I think Ball State's 6-6, and they're like 5-7. And certainly Loyola is really a roller coaster. They're the only one who has beaten Ohio State in the league. But yet they went down last weekend and lost to Ohio State like 5-2. So they've got both these teams have one in particular outstanding player. You know, the big kid from Quincy, whose name I can never pronounce.
Coach Denny Johnson can pronounce the name. It's Steinkühler.
Yeah, well, I guess that's right, but I don't think it looks like that. But he's a big ex-football kid who brings a lot of heat. And then, of course, Teddy Groves from up at Loyola has done some wonderful things. I think he has the physical ability maybe to someday play on our national team. And so each one of those teams has an outstanding player. We just have to hope that the rest of the guys don't raise themselves up to the level of those two guys over the weekend.
Well, with the rest that Hector and Jeff had last weekend, hopefully they'll be a little fresher and be able to turn on the heat as well. Mr. Steinkühler won't be the only one hitting the ball hard.
Well, certainly this weekend is an important weekend for us from the standpoint that we conclude our conference season, and we want to stay in a positive frame of mind going into the playoffs the following week. And of course, we've never lost to Quincy, and we don't want to start now. And in regards to them, we went down to their place, and they thought they were really going to be a formidable opponent to us, and we ended up beating them 15-0 the second game. And so I'm sure they haven't forgotten that. And Loyola, with Coach Mayforth being a little fiery that he is, and of course they're trying to hang on to that 4th spot in the league. They'll both be really good matches, and matches that we have to be prepared for. And of course the other thing for us is that Saturday night will be senior night, so we'll recognize our 4 seniors on Saturday night as well.
Well, we do have a big weekend coming up here. On Friday night, it's Quincy at 7 o'clock, and that will be televised here on Channel 56. On Saturday night, it's Loyola, Chicago at 7 o'clock again, and again it's televised on Channel 56. We'd rather have you in the gym, but if that doesn't work out, please watch us. Now, Saturday night will be senior night, as you said, and we have 4 seniors to honor. And Saturday night is also a big night for student government. They're going to have a T-shirt giveaway to the first 200 students, right? Or just students. You got to be a student to get the T-shirt. And they're going to have some kind of drawing so that 2 students will win free books. And I assume that means textbooks for an upcoming semester. And that's all courtesy of the Indiana Purdue Student Government Association. So, should be a big weekend, right?
Should be, yep.
For head coach Arnie Ball, the 3 Afrodons, our sponsors, Synergy, no, that's the Fujifilm and Touchstone Energy. I knew I shouldn't have watched those Cincinnati baseball games over the weekend. I'm your host, Mark Franke. Thanks for watching, and please join us again next week. Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. The Mastodons have ended their conference season with 2 big wins this last weekend, and we start the MIVA tournament this Saturday night against Mercyhurst. And after having the Afrodons on last week, you probably think there's no way we can come up with a better guest than that, but we have Coach Kelly Bullseye Hartley with us this week, so please stay with us.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform, millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
Welcome to this week's Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Mark Franke, and once again, our sponsors are Touchstone Energy, the local REMCs, and Fujifilm. Well, Arnie, they put the logos across the screen there, didn't they?
Yeah, and you did them backwards.
I did them backwards. I did them the opposite way.
Kind of like the Afrodons, last week. You screwed those up too. So, well, 2 for 2 for you.
I'm kind of dyslexic. If I can do something backwards, I usually do it backwards.
So far you have.
So far I have.
You've been real good at that.
In fact, last week I was confused as to which team we played on which night. It turned out it was Quincy Friday and Loyola Saturday. I thought they were the other way around. But we won both. I guess that's what matters, right?
That was important.
That was important. Of course, that's because we got Coach Johnson back on the staff. He had decided he needed a spring break when all the rest of us had to continue to work, and he missed a couple of matches, but then he came back. And he decided he would call the transition offense from the bench, the spur of the moment, and that didn't work too well, did it? He said set the middle, and the middle had 3 blockers in front of him and got stuffed straight down.
As I recall, there was a little discussion Friday night about that.
There was a little discussion
on the bench.
There was an argument between the two oldest coaches on the staff, and a young guy like me sitting in the middle of it, having to listen to both sides of it, was really difficult.
We may be the oldest, but we get announced first.
He did get announced first on Saturday night, didn't he? First time all season.
He and I, we may be the oldest, but we get announced first.
Must be because of spring break.
Must have been.
Must have been.
He must have had a great time.
He had a great time.
And I'm envious. And I know you're jealous. I'm envious. You're jealous.
You don't know the difference between envious and jealous.
Okay, whatever you say. Yes, I do, because right now you're jealous and I'm envious of John, because he's back there in the control with two beautiful young women, and here we are.
With Dan, the cameraman.
Yeah, we got Dan. What's wrong with this? I mean, last week, you know, we had Aphrodons here. They stuck it out with us. They weren't back there in the control room.
That's right.
And now today, you know, we got these two good-looking women in here, and John, he's got to have back in the control room.
Yep, he did. When we were starting the show and doing the promo, he had trouble counting down from 10. We had to restart.
We did start over, didn't we?
We had to start over. Well, John says we got 6 minutes to go, and he may cut it short if we don't get on the volleyball.
We'll run out of stuff to talk about.
Quincy and Loyola. Quincy ended up 4th place in the conference.
Yeah, that's not good. I don't like that at all. Not at all.
You wanted them in our bracket?
No.
You wanted Loyola up.
I wanted Loyola in the other bracket.
Loyola finished 6th.
I wanted Loyola in the other bracket. That's what I wanted.
All we had to do was lose to Loyola Saturday night. Probably would have moved them up there.
Well, then why did we do that?
Because
we tried.
We're not smart. Yeah. Well,
huh?
I'm not sure we tried to lose to them, but we did keep it interesting for the fans.
Well, what would you call that if it wasn't that we tried in the beginning of each one of those 3 games that we fell way behind?
All season long, you've been on the players saying you're seniors. When it gets to 12 points, you ought to be playing the best you play all game long. And that's what they did all 3 games on Saturday night. At 12, they really kicked it up. And now you're complaining about that?
Yeah, but we don't have to let the other team get to 12 first.
That's the part they didn't understand. We're supposed to get to 12, right?
Yeah, a lot of things they don't understand sometimes. Just like Coach Johnson. Set the middle. Oh, yeah, he got blocked. That was a great play. Want to try another one? He kind of hung his head up with that, didn't he?
Well, no, he said set him again. he's pretty stubborn, though. Quincy, I think, on Friday night, we played as well as we've played all year. We just executed, I think, all parts of the game really well.
Well, you know, that Quincy bunch, and of course, obviously, they finished 4th, so maybe they have a reason to be somewhat cocky in regards to their performance, but every time we play them, it's like, you know, it's like a war for them. It's just another game for us. And so they always come in with that attitude. They had it over there at their place, and they had it coming in here like, we're going to kick your booty. And what's the guy's name? Steinhauer or Steinhauer or whatever.
Steinkooler.
Steinkooler, that guy, that big guy, that big football guy. And then number 16, and both those guys, you know, and they hit negative for the match.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was great.
Yep. And then on Saturday night, we lost all the statistical categories except for hitting. We hit 40% in all 3 games, which was really strange. I thought we were having trouble siding out in Game 3, but we still ended up at 40%. Yeah, we won that match in 3.
That match Saturday was an exciting match for the fans, I think. Boy, they were loud. We had a great crowd. Of course, it was senior night, so maybe that helped a little bit.
And we won the long rallies, typically.
You know, you look at that match and you just wonder why we didn't win much easier. But then you watch it on tape, like I've got to do a couple times, and Loyola played really well. I mean, I thought they were as smooth as I've seen them play. But you know, we had the same problem with them at their place. Remember? Those are such emotional matches. Gordon, their coach, comes after me after the match, and he goes, you know, we can get within 2, we can't get any closer. Yeah, because 5 out of the 6 games this year that we've played them, 6 have all been decided by 2 points. They've only beaten us once in the whole history of their program.
He said before the match, as we were going down the stairs to the locker room, he was standing there. So we want to come down, Gordon, give our team a pep talk, and he says, "Why? We can't beat you." He said, "We've lost 9 or 10 straight." He says, "I don't know why we bother playing you." So I guess if the coach feels that way, it's kind of amazing the players play that hard.
And I know Gordon doesn't feel that way, but you know, after a while, you begin to wonder certainly.
Kind of like us in Ball State back in the
early days,
early 80s.
Yeah. But, you know, all 3 of those games we got behind, and it's kind of like you say, you know, our guys get behind, we kind of play here, and then all of a sudden we go, oh, okay, maybe we ought to kick in gear a little bit. And Panos just really did a nice job for us over the weekend. That Libero dug some great balls, and Hector raised his level of play offensively, and, you know, we just did some nice things once we got to 12.
I'm thinking that we ought to keep Hector's parents in town all the way through the tournament because he had his best weekend probably of the season with them here this week.
Well, I think Hector and Jeff both had good weekends. You know, with the exception of Angel's offensive performance on Friday, was better on Saturday. I was real pleased with our performance all weekend. Serving could have been maybe a little more consistent, but we dug balls, we touched balls. You know, we did not block a ball against Quincy in the first game, but you know, we talk about this a lot. We touched a lot of balls, and if you touch balls so that the other team can't terminate it, you can have a chance to transition and score. And we did that both Friday and Saturday. I'm pleased with the things we're doing.
So you think the movement is right going into the tournament, the trend, the improvement?
Well, I think so. You know, we made that switch in the middle of the year with John Thompson coming to our libero spot, and now we've kind of gone back to Panos. Panos has given us some stability, and the rest of the guys are focused. We've got to be a little better offensively in the middle, and we've got to be able to block a few more balls, terminate a few more balls. But I like the rest of it. I like the rest of what we're doing. Things are good.
Well, that's the way you want to be. You want to kind of hit a crescendo at the end when you're going into the conference tournament, because it'll be a rough 3 weekends. We got to win every night.
Well, this is why we train all year long, is to get to this point in the season. So hopefully, and I think we are. Kids are pretty well focused. You know, it's always a tough time this time of the year because finals are beginning to loom in the near future, and kids are working on grades and stuff like that. And the weather gets warm, and everybody thinks those kinds of thoughts in regards to spring. But I like the way our team's playing right now, and I think we have a lot of confidence going into the tournament.
And we seem to be in good physical shape, too.
We've backed off a little bit on the length of our practice, so the kids are right now physically as fresh as they've been probably for a while.
Yeah. And Jeff's knee's healing.
Getting better.
Getting better.
Not healed, but it's getting better.
Getting better. Well, that's what you want, just getting better rather than worse. When we return, Coach Kelly Hartley will join me. We'll talk a little bit about her women's program here at IPFW and some of the other things she does throughout the season for the sport of volleyball. Please stay with us.
Children gone, long time passing.
Every day, 10 children are killed by gunfire. You can help stop the violence. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT. Not one more lost life, not one more grieving family, not one more.
Gone to graveyards one by one. Oh, when will we ever learn?
Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show, the second segment here. We've got Coach Kelly Hartley from the IPFW Women's Program. And Kelly is our first-year coach for the women's program. You had your fall season, a successful one. You're now in your spring training period. And you also help the men's program by doing stats once in a while with Coach Colin Leiter. And we want to talk about the Yes Clinic and anything else you want to talk about. So just go on for about 12 minutes as a monologue, and I'll sit back and interrupt you when your time's up. How's that?
Those are some things I'd like to talk about. You know some topics I'd like to stay away from.
You want to go over that list one more time?
No, I think we're done with that.
They're done with the list of topics we're not going to discuss. Okay. So
my golf game was one of them.
Your golf game was just one of the topics. There were some others as well.
But in studying and preparing for today, I did know that I didn't really have to prepare much volleyball. I watch you and of course, Arnie, weekly. And I think that probably 25–30%, is that generous, how much time you really spend on volleyball?
Actually, the conversation on this show has about the same amount of volleyball content as the conversation on the bench during a match. So, people, you know, it's kind of like watching sausages made. I'm not sure you want to know the details. So, let's talk a little bit about the women's program. You came in as a first-year coach, had a tough conference season, but played pretty well.
Looking back at the fall, we had some, and it's easier now, I guess, than it was in November. Overall, I guess we were pleased. Of course, we were disappointed the way we lost to Northern Kentucky in the finals. They handed it to us pretty well, but we saw them again this spring, and of course, in the spring, what does that really mean? It's all very relative to what you lost and who you have coming in. But you know, we beat them this spring, and our kids were very confident after that win in the spring. It was important for us.
We lost a heartbreaker to Northern Kentucky here at home right at the end of the season, and that probably helped their morale and kind of deflated your players a little bit going into the conference tournament.
That's right, and especially because we had an opportunity to win that match. It was very tight in Game 5, and I think they were just a little bit more composed when it counted.
How many players are you losing on your team?
We lose 2 seniors, and a freshman won't return, a freshman from out of state, but 2 seniors, 2 starting seniors, 1 Rachel Brown, a middle, and then Jody Schnelker, who will leave a huge void in our defensive area.
And have you signed any recruits? You're allowed to give any names out yet, or you're still on
Yeah, we've signed 2 kids. A middle from Ohio. She can also play some other positions. She's very versatile, really like her athleticism. And then Zira Mazouk, a local girl.
From
Northrop. Yep. Plays for the #1 Fort Wayne Juniors team. And she's a real good athlete, good tennis player. She
going to be a 2-sport athlete?
No, she's
You're not. Gonna let her
Sorry,
do
Jay Webb. No. She probably could, but of course our seasons would collide, both in the fall. So.
And then in the spring, you have what, 6 weeks? Are you allowed, or?
Well, we were allowed something like 50-some days. When I counted it up, we didn't use all of them. We ended up using, high 30s, I think. We started after spring break. Part of that had to do with the gym schedule and basketball and men's volleyball. It was just a lot easier for us to come in after spring break and start our spring season.
Is it mostly physical conditioning or technical training? What do you work on during the spring?
I would say a combination of both. We certainly train really hard. We do plyos twice a week and some agility work, circuit-type training 2 other days a week, and we've been in the weight room really, really hard. This week is the final week of our 14-week weight training program that Coach Schmidlin helped me design for our team. And some of our kids have really benefited, and you see the difference. They're really strong right now. We're in good shape right now.
So they're going to continue that weight program over the summer?
That's a good question. We talked about that last night. It's so critical that what happens over the summer, because we're really better physically now than we were during the fall, our competitive season. So, you wish almost sometimes it was a spring sport so that you had the school year with them to prepare for your competitive season. But a lot of it depends on how important it is to them. Puts a lot of responsibility on the athlete to prepare over the summer.
You have Colin Leiter as an assistant. Colin's been here since really pretty much the beginning of the program. He played for Arnie at Harding High School.
He
then
says
played here
12
in the men's
years.
program.
12 years, and I'm his 4th head coach.
Well, okay, maybe officially as an assistant in the women's program, but since he first started with IPFW, it has to go back to, we'll ask Arnie when it comes back on. It must have been by 1980 he was here or something.
Yeah, 12 as an assistant is what he brags, and 4th head coach, and I'm sure he's seen a lot. He's been around all spring. He comes to practice every day. He's playing a lot right now. He's dropped some pounds, Colin, this spring, having to play because we're short numbers. He's just a great guy. He's very knowledgeable and good sense of humor. The kids love him. I really value his opinion too. That I show him a lot of recruiting tape, and in fact, we had one in last week, and he just has a really good feel for our conference and who's going to be successful at this level. Really value Colin and our staff.
Now he's the quiet assistant. Then you have
he's the quiet assistant?
He's the quiet assistant. Then you have Leslie Johnson, Coach Denny Johnson's daughter, who is helping this year.
And she tends to be, well, she can be quiet, but she has a fuse, I think, often from, like, her father, anyway. The apple doesn't fall far on that one.
Or as we say here,
same manners, and she's seen when they're...
You sow corn, you grow corn.
Is that the Indiana way to say it?
Indiana way to say it.
Thank you. A little culture there. Now, Leslie, you can tell when she's very competitive. You can just tell when she's upset, but I don't think that's a bad thing either. The only bad part about that, the negative, I guess, is when a kid comes out of the match and they have 2 blondes, red-faced blondes looking at them, and they might need this.
That's when Colin steps in, right?
Yeah, that's Colin's area.
Colin's the father figure.
I don't know if he'd like father figure, but figure, yes.
So that's quite a coaching staff. In fact, watching you in the fall, quite often Leslie was standing with the players at the end of the bench because she was too mad to sit down.
Yeah, her routine usually is stand up, stomp once, and to the end, which, it looks like it took a lot of practice. I mean, Denny Johnson definitely has that down. He ends up often at the end of your bench as well, So it must be a family trait.
It's a family trait. In the spring, in addition to what you've been doing with your team, you've been helping our team somewhat. Colin is our main statistician, and you've been helping, and some of your alums have been helping. Of course, in the fall, Roger and Lisa Horman do it from our staff for you, so it's kind of a nice trade-off. But the other thing you're working on, and this will be in conjunction with the NCAA tournament, is the YES Clinic. YES stands for what? Youth Excelling in Sports?
Education through sports.
Youth. Well, I got one up.
You were real close. But the YES Clinic, the NCAA runs a YES Clinic in conjunction with every championship. Ours will be May 6th before the final match that afternoon. Registration's at 8:30, but I need to stress it's a free clinic for boys and girls aged 10 to 18. So that's coming up here in 2 weeks.
Is pre-registration needed for that?
Yes. They need to call my office. I was hoping we'd get a graphic up what my office phone number is.
We'll get a graphic up with phone number. We record these in advance, so John's promised me he'll get it up on the screen before it goes out.
Because we do still have spots available for kids.
How many kids can you take in this clinic?
Our goal is between 300 and 400 kids.
Wow. How many coaches help with this?
We have a staff of, well, that I'm responsible for, about 40 volunteers. And then the NCAA brings an additional 20. So we're talking 60 volunteers that help with this event. I was here, I think, maybe 2 weeks when Coach Ball came to my office late last summer and said, oh, by the way, this YES Clinic thing, you know. So, you know, it's something that has been a year-long process and a lot of planning, but we feel real comfortable. We have a lot of people in this community, coaches, club coaches, and high school coaches that volunteer their time that Saturday.
And the idea is just to give them some basic skills training in volleyball in the course of one short day?
Yeah, and you know, I think we'll have some kids there who maybe it's their first introduction to our sport. So it'll be for all skill levels, ages 10 to 18, boys and girls. In addition to volleyball, we talk about sportsmanship. There's a session on life skills, so they maybe will come together and talk about some life skills and do some activities related to those life skills. There's also a parent session that morning, which is free. So the parents can drop off their child and then stick around for about an hour. We'll have on that panel of, it's a parents panel, and Dave Skeldon's on that panel. They'll talk about compliance issues, eligibility issues. Coach Millen will talk about nutrition and training for the sport of volleyball. We'll also have a student athlete on that panel, and they'll talk about moms and dads, this is how you can prepare your child to be a college athlete and how you can help them.
So it'll be useful for the whole family then?
Yeah, it should be a good day.
And they need to call your office, call IPFW's Athletics to register for that, right?
They'll need to call my office to receive an application. I've been sending out applications, and then they'll need to get it back. You can pick them up in the easy thing to do would maybe come by IPFW and ask for an application, because we will have to cut that application process off sometime next week. Early next week is our goal. So if they came by and it's just a real short application, they could fill it out and leave it with us.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, great.
We got the conference tournament coming up for us. What's your prediction?
Oh, I think we're going to win it. Absolutely. We're playing well. We're peaking at the right time.
So we think we'll win it, and then we'd go into the finals, come back to Fort Wayne and play. Who do you think we're going to be seeing? Who's going to come out of the West? Do you have any idea?
You know, I couldn't even I mean, I follow our conference and have been at, obviously, I think all of our home matches. But my first introduction, well, not introduction, but I haven't followed men's volleyball really until this year. It's just something that, living in Pennsylvania, I was kind of 3 hours or 2 hours from Penn State, didn't get over there very much. In Michigan, we didn't have men's volleyball or boys volleyball in the high schools, which is, you know, just a shame. But I've just started to get into the sport of men's volleyball. And it's very, very different than women's volleyball, don't you think?
Well, yeah, it's a lot different.
It's a different game.
It is a very different game, and the coaching strategies are different. Even the skills, to some extent, are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they each have their own level of excitement. I think the women's game has more excitement from the standpoint you have the longer rallies.
Longer play.
And so the fans can get into it more, whereas the men's game tends to be more of an execution, you know, just do it by the book sometimes. And if there's a criticism of men's volleyball, it's that side-out mentality where it's just side out, side out, side out, side out. So I guess they're different games, and they're both fun to watch in their own way.
If you were putting me on the spot and asking for a prediction, May 6th or May 4th, Final Four teams, I think we'll see IPFW there.
Okay.
There you go, Coach Ball. No pressure.
Well, we're going to ask you one last question before we go out of this segment. This will be an easy one. Out of all of the IPFW coaches on the men's team, which one is obviously the most intelligent, most handsome, and most likable and lovable of them all?
Well, you know, today, Mark, you're definitely the best dressed. Coach Ball, you looked very sporty today, but you get best dressed today.
That's all I get is best dressed?
What was the other part? I'm sorry.
That's enough out of her.
The whole staff? I need to consider your whole
John,
staff?
it's the last time we invite her back here. That's Coach Kelly Hartley of the IPFW women's program. And remember to, if you have a kid 10 to 18 who's interested in volleyball, to get an application for the S Clinic that occurs simultaneously with the NCAA Final Four. When we return, Arnie will come back and we'll talk a little bit about the first weekend in the MIVA tournament. So please stay with us.
Please don't get him started. We just got him off having his ears pierced.
Well, that was
When you were
last
in
year.
sixth grade.
Great, I know. Thanks, Grandpa and Grandma.
Let's see it. We're all anxious to see it.
Go look across. That's like Dad's jewelry, whatever, store, a jewelry store.
Right there, that piece you threw. Right.
Thank you, Grandpa and Grandma.
Get the keys. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. We should not have these breaks in between segments because it's hard to stay focused.
I just hope the camera's not on.
We only got 4 minutes left in the show. We got to talk about Mercyhurst, but I'm going to give you one chance to respond to anything that Kelly said.
I just want to thank her for being on the show and upgrading the level of the performance of the characters that are on the show. I thought she really did an outstanding job, and I'm not sure that you're the best dressed. I think she was the best dressed.
Oh, well, she was being modest then. Well, at least I was best dressed. There might not be anything else on the coaching staff, but
that was
best
really
dressed
a terrible question for you to ask, actually.
Well, that
was not very nice.
It was not the
you.
question she was expecting.
It was not very nice. You're right there.
When I said one more question, she thought it was going to be something else.
She did breathe a big sigh of relief when you asked that question.
That's right.
We do appreciate that. Her and I.
You both?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my show. It's got my name on it.
That's right. That's right. And your office is next door to hers, and I'm in a building on the other side of campus, so it doesn't matter.
Whatever. Let's get this done here.
Mercyhurst.
Yeah.
We play them?
Erie, Pennsylvania.
They're in Erie, not Saturday night. They're in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
They're in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Live on Channel 56.
Live on Channel 56, 7 o'clock. Of course, you'll want to come out to the Gates Center instead and watch it in person, but if you can't.
Well, they need to come because of the birthday bash. Student government birthday bash is that night.
Yeah, that's what I told everybody was going to happen last weekend, right?
Well, see, it didn't happen. So now we're going to do it this
Student
weekend.
government birthday bash, and tell us what all's involved with that.
Well, the first 200 students come, get free T-shirts, and get to register for a little contest we're going to have between games 2 and 3 for a $150 voucher for books at the Fowles Bookstore. And then we're going to have a birthday party afterwards, 20th year anniversary of our program.
So we better win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mercyhurst is one of those teams that, much like Loyola, where we tend to make a lot of the games last too long, don't we?
Yeah, you know,
especially over there. Not so much here, but over
obviously,
there.
Obviously, well, you and Kelly are talking about us being in the tournament, the finals, and so on and so forth, and I think we will be too. But we have to take with these one at a time. And Mercyhurst is not a bad team, even though they're 7th. They're not a bad team. They beat Loyola, a couple weeks ago at their place. They've got 2 kids that can bring the ball, bring some big-time heat. If we go into a lackadaisical, it'll be 12 points for them, and then we'll have to struggle. And we don't want that to happen. They're not a bad team.
Lackadaisical?
Yeah.
Were you sitting there reading a dictionary?
You told me to. Remember? I follow your instructions.
Okay, so
I behave a lot better or listen a lot better than our players do.
Well, that's not anything to brag about. It doesn't hardly put you in the
Still-
upper
still better.
90% of the
I mean,
population
come
or
on
anything. Well, actually, I think the players do listen better than our kids did when they were that age.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably
true.
true. That's probably true.
I can't argue. How can I argue with that one?
They're always willing to listen to somebody else's parents rather than their own, right?
My kids still don't listen. Thank goodness they don't live very close, except for one, and she's moving away. I'm going to be like you. I'm going to be childless, homeless with no child. Just
No,
like you.
It's not homeless with no child. That's
Well, something like that. That didn't make sense.
empty nest. Empty nest is what it's called.
Well,
Homeless.
That sounds sad. I don't want
I don't
to be
like the
sad.
idea of you being homeless because you're going to show up on my front door. Moving
Back
in.
door. Your back door is
Yeah,
closer.
my back door is closer. That's true. So this
I know how to get in, so.
yeah, you do. That's right. But you don't know how to disarm the alarm because you keep forgetting the code.
Well, that's true, but the cops show up and
And
it's no big
everything's
deal.
okay. That's
so.
right. So this weekend, Saturday night, 7 o'clock at the Gate Center, we play Mercyhurst. That is the first round in the MIVA tournament, which will then continue the following weekend at Ohio State. So come out to Gate Center at 7 o'clock, and if you can't make it, watch it here on Channel 56. For head coach Arnie Ball, for head coach Kelly Hartley, our sponsors Touchstone Energy and Fuji Film, this is Mark Franke. So long, and thanks for watching.